robots are starting to move into service roles in hospitals, elder care, universities, and public spaces. They're not just doing physical tasks anymore. They're giving advice, making recommendations, and guiding behavior. And that creates a new problem. People often don't take robot advice seriously. It isn't just inconvenient. In healthcare and elder care, ignoring advice can affect recovery, safety, and overall well-being. And that matters because these are exactly the environments where robots are being deployed the fastest. So we're facing a growing mismatch. Robots are increasingly responsible for giving advice, but humans are not very good at following it. That gap between technology and behavior is what we focus on. Our research asks a simple but important question. How do we design robot advice so that people actively listen and comply? And more importantly, how do we do this in a way that organizations can realistically implement without redesigning the robot, without adding new hardware, without requiring humans to constantly step in? We wanted a solution that works in real service environments, not just in the lab. Our answer is surprisingly simple. Robots work much better when a human is involved, even if that human isn't physically present. Just referencing a human or a person changes how the robot's advice feels. We focus on accountability, that feeling you might have to justify your actions to someone else. Accountability is a powerful driver of human behavior, especially in service and health contexts. When another human gives us advice, social presence naturally creates accountability. We worry about their judgment, expectations, or disappointing someone, even if no one explicitly pressures us. There's a subtle social signal that says this interaction matters, and that alone changes how seriously we take the request. Robots don't naturally create this feeling. Ignoring a robot often feels socially consequence-free, which makes non-compliance much easier. There's no shared social norm, no fear of awkwardness, and no sense that someone is personally watching your choice. So we tested a very small change. Instead of the robot giving advice on its own, it says the advice is on behalf of a human service provider, like a nurse or an instructor, and the instructor is shown in this video here, this screen. Nothing else changes. That single sentence activates accountability. The robot essentially borrows the human social presence shown in kind of the outline here, which makes the advice feel harder to ignore and more socially binding. Instead of feeling like a machine prompt, it starts to feel like a real social request. We tested this across 6 studies, including 4 field experiments with real robots interacting with real people. These studies took place in everyday environments, not controlled labs, which means the behaviors we observe are the kinds of decisions people make naturally. Our studies took place in elderly care facilities and university settings, 2 environments where advice compliance has meaningful consequences. This allows us to show that the effect is not limited to narrow use cases, but generalizes across very different populations and service contexts. When robots referenced a human source, compliance reliably increased, and this pattern was consistent across different behaviors and populations. In other words, this isn't a one-off effect, it's a robust behavioral shift. In one field study, this one here that's shown, simply changing the wording increased hand sanitation compliance from 66% to 80%. That's large behavioral shift from a very small wording change. And importantly, nothing else changed about the environment or the robot. In elderly care settings, participants were significantly more likely to follow the robot-recommended activities when a human source was named. This is especially important because engagement is often harder in these contexts. Small gains and participations can translate into meaningful improvements in daily well-being. And importantly, this effect doesn't wear off. Compliance remained high over repeated interactions across multiple weeks. That's critical because real service robots aren't used just once. They're part of an ongoing routine and repeated care interactions. It's not authority or friendliness driving this. Accountability is the key mechanism linking robot advice to actual behavior. When people feel socially accountable, they change what they do, even when the request comes from a machine. When a human source isn't available, robots can still increase accountability by explaining why the advice matters and how it benefits the person. Purpose-based messaging, as is shown up there, helps close the gap by giving people a meaningful reason to comply. This reframes how we think about robot design, from making robots more authoritative or dominant to making them socially meaningful and psychologically motivating. It's about designing interactions, not just hardware. When robots create accountability, people finally start listening. And that matters because robots are becoming part of care, education, and everyday service environments. For firms, this means better compliance, better service outcomes, and more effective human-robot service design. Thank you.